Great. Perfect. So far you're alone. I don't know where everybody is, but we just had a whole bunch of people in the French class. So I don't know. Maybe they're just going to come in a little bit later, but that's fine. You're there and that's perfect. Okay. As long as we've got one person on here, we're doing this. So great. Nice to see you back this week. Okay. So let me start by sharing my screen. And yeah, let me just go here. That's not what we need to see. Over here, and let me share this. Okay, there we go. Perfect. Okay, so let's do a quick review of what we saw last week, okay? A quick little rhythm review. So last week we saw that we had the quarter note, that was one beat, or one pulse. The half note had 2, the dotted half note had 3, and the whole note has 4 beats. So that means that we would play these notes, or sing these notes, or try these notes to last the length or the duration of all these beats, okay? So we also saw that the time signatures told us how to count. So here the top number was a 4, so therefore we're going to be counting up to 4. So let's clap through this rhythm. Okay, we're going to clap. I'll clap it with you, and I'm going to count at the same time. Okay, so here we go. Don't forget to hold your notes when you get to the half notes over here. Okay, so here we go. After 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Good. Very good. Perfect. Let's go on to the second line. So here we see that the top number is a 3. So that means that all of my measures or my bars are going to equal to 3 beats. So here we've got the dotted half note, and we see that up here it tells us that it's 3 beats. So that means that that one note fills up one full bar. So let's go. After 3, let's clap this one through. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Perfect. Pretty easy. Easy peasy. So let's go on and learn something new today. The staff. Let's look at the staff. So the staff is where the notes live, right? I'm sure you've seen that already in your lessons. So the staff is made up of 5 lines and 4 spaces. So here we've got them all counted out, 4 spaces, so it's pretty simple to see. So when we count the lines and the staff and the spaces, we always start at the bottom. So when we talk about the first line of the staff, we're always talking about the bottom line. So that's always line number 1, and then we move up. So line number 1 is never at the top. It's always at the bottom. And same thing with the space. So space number 1 is at the bottom of the staff, and then it moves up. Now, why is that important? I mean, a line is a line, right? Well, actually, it's important because when you're talking to other musicians, either, among yourselves, you go, hey, there's this note on the first line. What is it? Well, you want to know that this is the line you're talking about, not the one up here. Or let's say your teacher tells you, or you're teaching a friend, and you're telling them about where the notes are. Well, I've got a note that's on the second line. Well, is it here too, or is it 1, 2? So that's why we have to have a common way of counting, and we always start from the bottom to the top. Okay, so it's more a vocabulary thing than anything else. So we saw last week that our note had 2 parts. It has the head and it has the stem up here. I should say stem there, but I guess I lost that little word. Okay, so the note's on the lines. So the note must be placed so that the line passes through the center of the note, directly in the center of the note. So here we've got the notes that are on the lines. Now, a lot of people get confused about that because they think that if I'm saying on the line, then the note, if it's my blue dot here, it would be like sitting on top of the line. But that's not really the way you need to see it. You have to kind of think that if your staff was on the floor and you're looking down at it from the top and you want to place the notes on the lines, then the line would really go right through the note. So here we've got these notes that are on the line. So if we want to draw some notes, the head of the note must touch only the line that it's placed on. But if you draw your note too big and then it also goes into the space and it touches the other line, well, then we don't know what that note is. Is it on the line or is it in the space? It's hard to tell. We can't tell. So it's very important that if you're drawing notes on the line, that you only touch that one line. So your turn now, okay? Take a staff paper if you have one, or just a regular paper with your pencil, and draw a note on each line of the staff. So if you have a staff paper, great. If you don't, draw your lines up, draw 5 lines. And then I want you to draw a note on each of the lines of the staff. Now make sure that you only touch that one line that you're putting them up. And when you're done, you can just show me. Okay, so you should end up with something that looks like this. Is that what that looks like? Show me. Oh, bring it down a little bit. Yeah, perfect. Okay, good. Just make sure, see like that last one, it's pretty close to that 4th line, right? It's touching a little bit, that 4th line. So you got to make them a little smaller next time, okay? Good, very good. Okay, now let's look at the notes in the spaces. So the head of the note must be placed between the 2 lines. See how it's really between the lines? And same thing, we only want to keep the head of the note between the lines. So we're touching the 2 lines, but we don't pass them. Because again, if you pass, then one's not sure, is it on the line or is it in the space? We can't tell. Same thing with this, see? We don't know. If someone was to draw that and they would say like, hey, you know, what is this? I wouldn't even know what note that is because I don't know if it's on the line or in the space. So go ahead, your turn. Draw some notes in the spaces of the staff, but make sure to stay between the lines without passing any. Just draw heads. You don't have to draw the stems of the notes. Because next week we'll look at the stems and they're going to be very good. Perfect. Perfect, perfect. That's great. Okay. So the notes in the staff. The higher the notes are on the staff, the higher the sound they represent. So these notes are ascending. They're going upwards. And therefore, they're representing sounds that are higher and higher. So if I start with these low sounds, ooh, and then my sounds are going to go higher. Okay, actually, it's kind of cool that the singers do a really neat exercise called the siren, and they kind of go really low. They start really low, and then they go pop it up at the top. So listen to how the sounds are going to get higher and higher. Ooh, and then they just drop back down. So they didn't get to do that in their lesson to warm up their voices. Okay, but that's basically what's happening here. So the notes are going ooh, but it's 4 different notes. Ooh, and they're going up. Here, the notes are going downwards. So the lower the notes are on the staff, the lower the sound will be that they represent. So here they're starting high, ooh, and they're going down. Okay? So when I teach younger children, younger than you, I will often say, Well, high sounds are kind of like birds up in the sky. So they chirp up there, beep, 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 beep. So those are really high sounds. And then the low sounds are like, think of like low crocodiles or alligators that are always on the floor. And I mean, I doubt that, I've never heard an alligator or a crocodile, but I doubt they have very squeaky voices, right? I seriously doubt that. I think they would have low sounds. So grunting maybe. So that would be a low sound. Okay, so that helps to remember what's high and what's low. Now, we can also add some lines to the staff. So sometimes we need to add extra lines below or above the staff. These lines are named ledger lines. So they're shorter, they're drawn shorter to make it easier to read. Because you can imagine if I had all these lines and they were all the way across my paper, and then I'd put a note right here in the middle, that would be really hard to figure out. Because is it on this line or is it on this line? And then your eyes kind of start freaking out a little bit when you're trying to figure it out. But when the lines are a little bit shorter, it's easier to see. So just like in the staff, the heads of the notes must be placed on the lines or between the lines. So here we've got some ledger lines above, and here we've got some ledger lines below. So here they're on the lines, and here they're in the spaces. For the space notes, it's important to understand that we only use just enough lines to identify the note. So because we start counting from the actual staff, if we're going up, we only need the lines that are going to be under the note. So we don't need this extra note, this extra line, sorry, up at the top. Same thing below. If we're going below, we're going to use the lines to count from the staff down, and then the note. But once I've done my note, I don't need another line. So now your turn. What I want you to do is draw some notes on ledger lines. You decide how many ledger lines you want to put. You can put 1 or 2. See, like here I had 2 here, I had 3 there. I also did some with just 1, 2. So you decide how many you want to use, okay? But draw at least 5 different notes on the lines and in the spaces. Okay, go ahead and do that. And then we'll check if they're okay. So just draw little lines, not too much, not too long, and then you draw your line, your note. Okay. Now what I want you to be careful when you're doing it, let me just, so you see when I draw this line here? Now some students, when they draw a line like that, what they do is they end up putting the note just as big as the line. And that doesn't work. Okay, so your line has to pass the note on each side. Okay, it has to be like that. Or same thing, if I want to do my note in the space or like on, for example, it would be like this. So I wouldn't have like a really short line with a huge note on top. That wouldn't work. Okay, so you have to make sure that your line is just a little bit bigger than the head of the note. So just make sure of the proportions that you're using. You got some? Very good. That's it. Okay, perfect. Good. So this is what you end up with, right? Some notes like this. And I make sure that if I've drawn some notes on my spaces underneath that I don't have extra lines. Like this would be an extra line we don't need, or up here, this would be an extra line we don't need. So we don't put lines past the actual notes. So good, you didn't do that. Okay, the names of the notes. So here we know, you've probably learned in your class that there are 7 note names. Can you name them? Do you know what they are? So what I'm going to ask you to do is I'm going to ask you to start with the note do or si, whichever system you use, okay? So some English families use the do, re, mi system, and some English families use C, D, E, like ABC. So either one is fine, okay? You can use either one. They're both acceptable. But I want you to start with that first note at the bottom and then write the names of the notes going upwards on the lines. So draw 7 lines. You could even draw an 8th line that's a little bit different, squiggly or something at the top. Start at the bottom, draw 7 of them plus a squiggly one or a dashed one. And I want you to write the names of the notes working your way up from the bottom. Okay, so if you start with do or si at the bottom, then we move up and we've got re or D, depending on which ones you're doing, and then go all the way up to the top. I'll give you some time to complete that. Good, you got that? Okay, so you should have written, you can check your own work. So it goes from the bottom, it goes do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si, and on the top squiggly line, you should have another do. Now, why is it on a different line? Well, because we've already mentioned that one. Or if you did letters, you have C, D, E, F, G, A, B, with a C on top. Okay. Now let's go backwards now. Cool. So now let's start with the do or the si at the top and draw your 7 lines going down and your 8th one, squiggly one at the bottom. And what I want you to do is start with the do or the si at the top and then work downwards. So write them going down. And once again, it doesn't matter if you use the do, si, la system or if you use the CBA. It doesn't matter at all. Either one is acceptable. Okay, you done? Okay, so you should have, from the top, goes do, si, la, sol, fa, mi, re, and another do. Or if you did the letters, you should have C, B, A, G, F, E, D, and C. You're good? Is that what you got? Yeah, perfect. Okay. So to ensure the complete note pattern, we use the lines and spaces alternately. So we alternate between line and space. So they almost look like they're forming a staircase. So here the notes are following their order because they're going line, space, line, space, line, space, line, space, line, space. So to follow the order, they're getting progressively higher. So the notes are going higher. And here the notes are following their order because again, they're going line, space, line, space, line, space, line, space, line, space, and they're getting progressively lower. They're getting lower and lower with each one. Now, if the notes jump from line to line, well, automatically they're skipping some notes because, for example, if I have this note here, which is, I could say it's mi or E, and then I have another line here. Well, what happened to the note in between? There was also a note that would be here. So if this is a mi, then I would have fa, and this would be sol, or E, F, G. And then same thing, I'm going from a line to a line. So that means I have to skip this space note that would be here. So when the notes skip around like that, it also means we're skipping notes. But because they're going from low to high, that means they're still going higher and higher. They just won't be following the pattern of the notes following that you just wrote. You know, the do, re, mi, fa, sol, C, D, E, F, G. They won't be following that because they're skipping around. And same thing down here. So you're on the line, you're going from a line to a line, and then line space. Oh, these ones would follow each other, but then, whoop, they're skipping around. So they're not going to follow the pattern, but they still are going progressively lower and lower. Is that making sense? Cool. Okay, not much left, okay? So the treble clef. So everybody recognizes this symbol as a music symbol. Absolutely everybody, okay? So as soon as I show this, they go, oh, music. Exactly. So the treble clef indicates that the sounds that we're about to play or write will be high sounds. So the treble clef is placed on the second line of the staff, and it indicates the note sol or G. So the treble clef, sometimes it's also called the G clef. It has two names, the treble clef or the G clef. Okay, and when we put that note on the second line, just like that, it tells us that where the G is, or the sol. So now your turn. This is a little trickier. I want you to try to draw a treble clef. So it's a little bit hard, okay? But make sure to start and circle the second line. So that's the easiest thing. So if you want, we can do kind of like a little step-by-step here. So you need to have your staff. That's the first thing. Okay, so I've got my 5 lines. Very good. Now I want you to start on the second line because a lot of people start somewhere else. So you start where that dot is. Start on the second line. And you're going to circle a little bit like a snail. That would be step 1. Now in the homework I'm going to send, there's going to be step by step. Okay, it's just that on the camera it's a little bit hard to do. So when you've done that, that's step 1 to doing your treble clef. From this end of the snail, we're going to go up and diagonally a little bit. Okay, we're going to go up and diagonal. We're going to come sit on top of that circle that was there. Then we're going to hook backwards. Oops, you don't see my hook too well. You're going to hook backwards. So you go back towards the left. And then from that hook, you're going to go straight through the center, straight down through the center. Okay, we're going to try another one. We'll try another one. We'll see if we can get it done. So you've got your staff. Oopsie. No. Oh, I hate when this happens. Wait, let me put this away. Here it is. Full screen. Where's my full screen? Let me try it out. Try to reopen my screen. I can't get it to open again. I'm sorry. Okay, so give it a try. Okay, again. So you've got your 5 lines, and you're going to start with that little, the little snail part. I'm trying to get. I can't get my thing to get the whole screen again. It's really tiny now. I don't know why. So you're still going to start with your snail. Yeah, it's so small, I don't think it, oh, there it is. There, you can see it. So start with the snail. And then from that snail, you go straight up and diagonal. And then hook backwards. Go back towards the left. And then go straight down right through to the bottom from there. Okay, how'd you do? They're hard to do. They are hard to do. That's not bad, actually. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Good for you. You can make them just a little taller, so you can make them past the staff a little bit if you want to make them a little more stretched out. But that's actually really, really good. So that's good. Perfect. Okay, the bass clef. So the bass clef indicates that we play or write low sounds. So it's placed on the fourth line, and it indicates the fa note or the F note. So this is really easy to draw. Okay, so we start on the fourth line, and you just make like an ear, basically goes up to the fifth line, and then it goes back down to the second. It doesn't fall, it doesn't go below the second line. So it's like a giant ear. And then you've got your two dots that are on each side of the fourth line. So they're in the space of the third space and the fourth space. So they're kind of contouring the fourth line, because if I put a note on that fourth line, that would be my F or my fa. And the bass clef has two names. It's called the bass clef or the F clef. So that's why, because it indicates the fa note. So that helps us to have a kind of like a starting point to help us count our notes and recognize where they are. Okay, so try to draw a few. They're pretty simple. You good? Good. Okay, great. You want to show them to me? Let me see. Yeah, actually the ear part is really great. Just maybe watch where your dots are, because your dots have to be in the third space and in the fourth space. And I think you have a dot way down in the second space. So maybe just correct that, bring it up in the third space. And the reason it's important where the dots go is because they're on each side of that fourth line. They have to be in order to tell us where the F is, the fa is. So that's why. Okay? Good. So the clefs, the staves, and the instruments, okay? Reading in treble clef is for high sounds. So high sounding instruments. So the flute, children's voices or women's voices make high sounds, the violin, the guitar, etc. Can you name other high sounding instruments? You want to unmute?
A saxophone?
Exactly, yeah. A saxophone makes high sounds, so that would use a treble clef. And then there's the trumpet, and so there's a lot of different instruments that use a treble clef. Reading in the bass clef is for low sounding instruments, like a man's voice, the bass, the tuba, right? You've seen the tubas in marching bands, boom, 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 right? So we see them sometimes even in cartoons. So the tuba is a low instrument. The cello is like those giant violins that we play in front of our body. So the cello. So there's a lot of different instruments that make low sounds, and they would be reading using the bass clef. But then we have instruments like the piano, the organ, the marimba, the harp, the accordion. They all use two staves. And notice how I said that, two staves, right? One staff, two staves. So they are joined together by a brace, and they form what we call the grand staff. So these instruments have a very extended note range, very high sounds and very low sounds. And so to avoid using a whole bunch of ledger lines, we use two staves, one in treble clef and one in bass clef. So that covers the high and the low sounds. And then the right hand would be on the treble clef, because like if you're playing piano, for example, the high sounds are on the right side of your body. So that would be for your right hand. And then the bass clef is more for your left hand because the low sounds are on the left of your body. So that's how that works. And we are done for tonight. We learned a lot, didn't we?
Yeah, we did a lot.
Yeah. I hope you learned some stuff you didn't know yet.
I learned like a lot more than I used to know.
Great. Well, that's perfect. That's great. So hopefully you'll still be there next week. I hope it didn't freak you out that you were alone tonight. Okay. But I was very happy. I'm very glad that you came. And I'm sure that there are going to be more friends next week that are going to come. Because like I said, the French class, it was packed. There was a lot of people coming in the French class. But I don't know, tonight it was just you, but that's great. Okay. So I will send out the recording of this. I'll also send out the homework with a sheet of how to trace, like starting to trace the treble clef, and then so you get to do more and more of those, and they're going to be much easier once you use that sheet and the step by step. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome. Have a good evening. Okay, we'll see you at your class.
Okay,
Bye. Bye. Bye, Mom.
Bye.